Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make this really super simple cocoon type cardigan. So this is a beginner project, so I'm going to try to go slow enough for my beginners, and hopefully if you catch on easily you'll be able to have something that you can wear. So I used a Bernat Softee Chunky Yarn, which is a bulky yarn, and then a 9mm crochet hook. So let's get started by making ourselves a slip knot. So I will try to talk you through this tutorial as much as possible and giving some tips along the way. I will also at some point have this on my website, my blog, for you if you wanted to like vary the size. So this cardigan that I'm making today is a I would say extra large cardigan. If you have a large chest area, then it might be considered a medium. It just depends on kind of your body structure. So the way I started this cardigan is I made a foundation chain of 60 stitches plus 3, so a total of 63 stitches, and then we're going to do a double crochet stitch all the way down the chain. So that's a total of 61 stitches that I ended up creating. So go ahead and create yourself your 60 stitches, and then when you're done we'll meet back at the end of the row. And I say this is a beginner tutorial because technically we're going to just be using 2 stitches. We'll be using the double crochet stitch, and then we'll also be using a single crochet stitch to make the sleeves. So this is a relatively easy project, and I love to make these type of projects, especially when you have someone that's transitioning from, yay, I learned how to crochet, I know how to make a blanket, now I want to make something that I can wear. So that's what this tutorial is going to allow you to do. Okay, so just continue to make your double crochet stitches all the way down the foundation chain. Just yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and then pull through the last 2. If you do not know how to do a double crochet stitch, I'll make sure that I link somewhere in the video a slower tutorial on how to do a double crochet stitch, but I think you can catch on here. I'm going to do it a few times. Okay, and then here once you get to the end, I'm just showing you here, make sure you get a stitch in the end. And let me show you what we're creating with this double crochet stitch. You see how this looks around the collar area of the cardigan? That's what the double crochet stitch using this multicolored yarn is going to create. So it's hard to see it there, how this is all going to shape up, but that's what you're creating right here. That the bottom part of your square is actually going to be what shows up around your neck. So it's going to be kind of neat how that works up. So just make sure you get a stitch in that last stitch on the row. You're going to chain 3. Now at this point, I would suggest you go ahead and count your stitches so you know exactly how many you have, because in your next row you want to make sure you have the same number of stitches. So that first chain of 3 right there, that's going to count as your first stitch of the row. And so when I yarn over and insert my hook, I'm going to insert that into the second stitch in the chain. So you've already created 1 by doing the chain of 3, and now you're going to do your second stitch in the row to create your second double crochet stitch, if that makes sense. And you can just go ahead, if you wanted to start counting now, you would have already had, you have 1 that's already made and you're making your second one, now you're on your third one, if that makes sense. And just keep counting to make sure that you have the same number of stitches in your first row as you have in your second row. And I'm going to try to insert little pictures throughout the tutorial to kind of keep you in line with what exactly we're doing. But this is a very simple tutorial overall, I think. So that's what you should have so far. You just want to make sure that you keep your ends as neat as possible. And not so much for this project that it's important, but as you get more into crocheting, it's going to be more and more important that your ends look good and you have the same number of stitches in the row. Okay, so Here I am, I'm showing you how to add yarn. So we've done 3 rows using the multicolored yarn, and now I'm going to switch to my solid color yarn. And you saw there, all I did was I just draped the yarn over the crochet hook and then just started crocheting. So if you need to see that again, just rewind it and you can see exactly how I do my color change. I did my chain 3, I'm going to skip my first stitch, go into my second, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my double crochet stitch. Okay, and then you just continue doing that all the way down the row, and you'll just keep working this the same exact pattern. You'll just do double crochet stitches all the way until you get to your desired length, and then we'll come back. But I'm gonna show you, I think I'm going to show you how to add yarn again. Just keep working. Okay, so I have worked this as much as I could using the skein, and now it's time for me to add some yarn. And so the way I'm going to do that is, because we're using the same color, it's very simple. I'm just going to tie a knot. So there's a ton of ways to add yarn to a project. I find that this is one of the simpler ways. It's just simply tie yourself a knot, make sure that it's really secure. I think I'm going to do a double knot here, and because of the bulk of this yarn, it's really, you really can't see these knots. A lot of people don't like to have knots in their project, but honestly, because we're using such a bulky yarn, you really can't see it. And oftentimes when I'm using like a thinner yarn, or if I'm thinking ahead, I'll make the tails a little bit longer so that I can weave them in. But I didn't do that in this case, and it's okay. It won't make a big difference in the project at the end. And then once you have your knot, just continue to do your double crochets all the way down the row until you get to your desired width and your desired length. Okay, I'm going to come on off camera and continue to work, and then I'll come back. Okay, here I wanted to just point out one more time that once you get to the end of the row, you want to make sure that you're putting a double crochet stitch into the chain 3. That's important for your project to stay flush. So it's easy not to be able to see it, but if you kind of give it a little tug, you can see that it's not flush and you need to put another stitch in the row. So this is going to be very important when you're doing other projects, especially if you need something to be exact. But it's really good to do it in good practices because you want to have your project to be symmetrical in most cases. So that's what I did here. I just want to show you how to make sure you get the chain, the crochet stitch into the chain. So this is what it's looking like. I did 4 rows using the multicolored yarn in the very beginning, and then I did a few rows using the multicolored yarn in the middle, and see, that's how it looks in the project. I just wanted to break up that brown. It was so, it was a lot of brown, so I did another 3 rows using the multicolored yarn, and then I continued on using the solid color yarn, and then I'm going to finish this project out doing another 4 rows of the multicolored yarn. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And now here I'm just showing you what we would do next. Once you've completed your square, or your I guess it's more like a square. Once you've completed your square, you're going to fold it in half, and then you're going to start to create your cocoon cardigan. And I'm going to show you again. I was actually working this project when I was out and about, and I wanted to get it on film so you could see what it looked like before I finished it up. But basically you're going to fold the project in half, and you will meet your top to your bottom, and then you're going to create your area for your arms. So it was hard for me to show it here. This is something I just videoed with my phone, so it's not the right size, but I wanted to show you what I was talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a clip of a small piece of fabric to show you what I really mean. Okay, so here I am. I have just a little piece of fabric just so I can show you. You fold if this was your crochet project, you're going to fold it in half. So basically now you have your top is going to meet the bottom part of your of your project, you're going to leave a space large enough for your arms to fit in. So in this case, I just stapled it, but pretend like this is crochet. And essentially what you'll do is when you open up your project, you're going to have this, I guess this design that kind of looks like a fortune cookie. But that fortune cookie, that design is actually the cocoon of your crocheted cardigan. So it's really neat the way it all comes together, and I'll show you again at the end, but that's what we're doing here now. We've already measured off our arm pieces. We did 7 inches from the fold down, and now I'm just going to go ahead and seal, I'm going to seal the part below the arm area. I hope that makes sense. And I'm going to do that using a single crochet stitch. So here we are. I'm just basically inserting the yarn through both sides of the crochet fabric, and then I'm just going to do a single crochet stitch all the way down. Now if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you can also just get yourself a yarn needle and then just do a whip stitch down the side. So either way, just the bottom line here, you're just trying to make sure that you join the 2 ends. You're joining them together so that way you just have the area for your arms, if that makes sense. Okay, and I don't know if I said this or not. If I haven't, if I have, I'm sorry. But basically what we're doing is we made a large square, and some people do this same thing with a granny stitch. I didn't do it with a granny stitch, and I think I'm going to try to do a smaller version using a granny square. But basically you're going to make the square, the way how you make it is, say for instance I'm 5'5", which I am. That's 65 inches. So I'll take 65 inches and divide it, and then roughly that's around 33 inches, and that is the length of my square. So 33 inches plus a few, 35 inches, and that's the length of my square. So when you fold it over, you're essentially going to now be able to have the cardigan that's going to fit the size of your torso or your body. Okay, so that's what it looks like. It's kind of like a crude little stitch, and I'm going to turn this inside out. So that part you're not going to see, although you can leave it like that. I think it looks kind of cool, but I'm going to flip mine inside out. So I'm just going to remove the area. I put a stitch marker there, but I'm just going to remove that stitch marker so I can flip this inside out. So this is like what I was showing you before. Now we're kind of creating that fortune cookie looking design. So I'm flipping my fabric inside out. So now that my right sides are facing out. See how it looks there? So you can't even see that real crude stitch that we just did. And I've already done one sleeve, and I'm going to show you how to do the sleeve on the other side. But see, if you just flip it open, just like I showed you earlier, now you actually have your cocoon poncho. So it's really more about how it fits once it's on your body, which is, it's really actually pretty cool and pretty simple. So I can't get it all in the camera, but that's what it's gonna look like. And I'll sew in all those extra little strings when we're done. But I have the sleeve done on one side, and what that basically is just a single crochet stitch all the way around. I did it 9 times around, 9 rows around. And that's going to allow for me to have a sleeve that comes about 3/4 of the way down my arm. So I'm going to show you how to create a sleeve. Now, if you don't want a sleeve, then just go ahead and sew in your ends, and then you're done with your project. This is a project that I started right at the beginning of spring, so it was a little bit cooler, and it just took me longer to get it completed. So this is going to be a perfect little cardigan going into the fall. Okay. So as not to bore everyone, I am going to kind of go through this a little bit quicker, but all you're basically doing is you're going to do a single crochet stitch all the way around that opening, and there's a lot of little strings there. If you can work them in as you're going along, perfect. If not, when you're done with the project, then you'll just go back and sew them in using a yarn needle. Okay, so here I am. I'm just going to do a single crochet stitch all the way around the sleeve, and if you already did a sleeve, then you can kind of have a count of how many you did, and you just kind of want to make sure you have the same number so that your sleeves are symmetrical. So if I did 32 around on my first sleeve, then I would want to try to do 32 around on my second sleeve, if that makes sense. So just find your holes, and then you're just going to do a single crochet stitch in all those holes all the way around. And I ended up doing 9 rows of single crochet. So this project is really customizable, so if you find that this is too big for you, my intentions are to put in on my blog the different measurements for the different sizes. But really, if you just measure yourself and know how tall you are or how tall you're making this for somebody, then you won't have to customize it too much. Just kind of make it in general. Okay, just go all the way around. I'm gonna stay on camera for this, just so that way if you've never worked in a round before, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But if you've worked any projects in the round, like if you've made any of my hats that I've done on this channel, if you've made the boot cuffs, then we're doing essentially what we've done in other videos. Okay, just keep going. And I decided to do my sleeves in the same trim that I did the bottom of my project and the top of my project, so that it all kind of just pulls together. And I feel like I should have done this in a more springy color, just because, you know, it's spring now, summer now, but this is going to transition well for me for the fall. All right, so now that I've gotten myself all the way around, I'm going to join the two together. So I slowed the camera down a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm just going to do a single crochet stitch, use from the end of my row to the start of the beginning of the start of the row, if that makes sense. You can see it better than I can explain it. You're just basically slip stitching the two together. Okay, and then I'm going to use a stitch marker as I go around, and a stitch marker is just a placeholder so you know where your first row, your second row, all those rows start. Anything can be a stitch marker. You can use a paper clip, you can use a piece of yarn, a different color yarn. I'm actually going to use a stitch marker, and you can get these from like a Joann's Fabric, Michael's. You can even get them on Amazon. But if you don't have any of these things, then a paper clip would work perfect, a bobby pin would work fine, or even a piece of yarn. So now I'm working on row 2, and like I said, I did a total of 9 rows. So it's up to you how many rows you want. You don't have to do 9. You can do 6, you can do 5, or you can do none, and just continue to work all the way around. And then that's pretty much it. Once you have your sleeves completed, you already sewed the sides together. You're just going to go back in and sew up all your loose ends, and then you have a completed cocoon cardigan. So it's a great project for a beginner. If you have any questions about this project, please leave them in the comment section down below. This is what it looks like kind of laying flat. I showed this to you earlier, and then this is what it looks like once you put it on. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you have like I say, any comments or questions, let me know. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please take the time to do that. Thanks guys, I will see you in my next video. Bye.